Hi everybody, Rad Mom here. Welcome back to the channel, where today we have just a little choice nugget because we're snowed in and everybody's stuck at home this week. We are checking back in with Jessie Gender. It's been a little while.
People who present in femme ways are often slotted into the trans women role, even though they don't necessarily think of themselves, ourselves, that way.
He is trying to control the narrative, as always, but this time in regards to how we talk about trans men. This topic piqued my interest, but I've been watching his stuff for so long, I started to hear through what he's saying. I've been listening to these people for so long, I'm like not even hearing the repetition anymore. I just start to pick up on some of these details, the extra stuff that gets overlooked when you're working so hard to control the narrative.
Trans women, by putting ourselves in what the world would see as like a lesser part of the power hierarchy, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
He's here telling not just on himself, but the great lady of gender herself, Judith Butler.
Because gender, as Judith Butler talks about, is performative.
Get ready for that. Let's go.
Women are seen as the lesser power dynamic. And then in order to attempt to justify that power dynamic that was created by the societal structures that were put in place by those in power, they then say that it's somehow natural and normal, like using pseudoscience or whatever phrenology nonsense that they wish to use.
Biological reproductive sex is not phrenology nonsense.
Non-binary people can be femme or masc or anything under the sun that doesn't even align with how we think about binary within Western cultural conceptualizations. I myself am a femme non-binary person. People who present in femme ways are often slotted into the trans women role, even though they don't necessarily think of themselves, ourselves, that way.
Slotted there by whom? I got to know this guy a couple of years ago and I didn't realize he was non-binary. That would be after the boob job and the facial feminization surgery. But you wouldn't want to be a trans woman, I guess. Because hierarchies or something, right?
Trans women, by putting ourselves in what the world would see as like a lesser part of the power hierarchy, quite literally break this concept of the narrative of our society that people constantly want to get power over people.
Whose narrative is this? Who is it that subscribes to this narrative?
Women are seen as the lesser power dynamic. Trans women are seen as lowering themselves on the power hierarchy.
That's okay because you're not one, right?
Which is often quite why that thinking will lead people like TERFs to say things like, oh, you're appropriating womanhood, because they still frame themselves in that thinking about a power hierarchy.
No. Women not wanting you to use their bathroom has absolutely nothing to do with power hierarchies necessarily. Acknowledging a difference does not necessarily mean acknowledging a hierarchy. Who is stuck on that?
I mean, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
Yeah, I can't imagine why anyone would accuse you of appropriating womanhood. What exactly does femme mean? What does the word femme, which you just used for yourself, refer to?
And so for what they see as men to come into their space and claim their victimhood or whatever.
Oh my God, dude, not everybody thinks like that.
Whatever nonsense, it kind of goes back to that same power hierarchy.
For you it does. For you it does. But just because you can't escape this shit does not mean that everything actually comes back to that hierarchy that you can't seem to not see.
It's also why they will frame trans women as men. I mean, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
No, you're a dude. You're a geeky dude. Which, frankly, is kind of endearing to me. I've known so many guys like this. It doesn't matter how femme-presenting you are. And I don't know what... I still have yet to get a satisfactory explanation of what exactly non-binary is. I get what it's not. And it's breaking narratives or whatever. Wait, or is it trans women who do that?
Whatever nonsense, it kind of goes back to that same power hierarchy dynamic and framing. It's also why they will frame trans women as men to create, again, that power hierarchy and to otherize trans women from a women's space. Because, again, it's just sort of sliding into that us versus them mindset that these dichotomies try to engender.
No. Some dichotomies are real. The differences between men and women exist outside of any power interpretation you might have about them. Acknowledging them is not sliding back into some kind of hierarchical power dynamic thinking. Some things are just material facts. You would seem to understand that on some level, in that you've gone to such great lengths to, break out of, to defy material reality in your own case.
And the way that that's often wielded against trans people is saying that we have some, biological essentialization features about us. That, trans men are always going to be women, trans women are always going to be men. I mean, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
Someone acknowledging your adult human maleness is not them using hierarchical mind games against you. That's just acknowledging a fact. A fact that bothers you enough that you've gone to, great lengths to be femme presenting, but you wouldn't want to actually be a trans woman. Why is that, Jessie?
Women are seen as the lesser power dynamic. And so trans women, by putting ourselves in what the world would see as a lesser part of the power hierarchy.
Wait, are you a trans woman or not?
I mean, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
Oh, okay. I'm confused because you seem to be.
And so trans women, by putting ourselves in what the world would see as a lesser part of the power hierarchy, I literally break this concept of the narrative of our society that people constantly want to get power over people.
You don't have to pretend to be a woman to challenge power dynamics in society. In fact, it kind of looks like you're doing the opposite. It kind of looks like you're enforcing one and rationalizing it for us in such a fun way here.
Which is often quite why that thinking will lead people like TERFs to say things like, oh, you're appropriating womanhood. I mean, I myself am a femme non-binary person.
So you're obviously not appropriating womanhood, aside from the fact that you keep using this word femme for yourself, which refers to what again?
Our biology is also varied across a spectrum, as well as, biological features and sex characteristics or whatever are mutable, and also don't define how we think about gender in terms of how we can enact it within our society.
And here we have some fairly interesting power dynamic analysis that is completely wasted in this context. But he didn't even come up with this. Of course.
Because gender, as Judith Butler talks about, is performative. And we make gender real by our performance of it and how we think about gender in terms of how we enact it into our society overall.
I believe what you're talking about there is identity. Your identity is performative, and it only really becomes real when you enact it in the world. In a lot of cases, in a lot of ways. Yeah, that's true. Gender does not equal identity. And I think we may have just happened upon the crux of the misunderstanding here. The whole point of feminism is supposed to be that you're not defined socially by your reproductive capacity. Not that you're supposed to take your gender and make your entire identity about it. This is so completely inverted and backwards. Thanks a lot, Judy.
As those in power try to make it appear in order to justify their power hierarchies as somehow some natural way the world works.
And that's a pretty solid point about the way social power dynamics function in the world. Why on earth we have to make it all about gender is beyond me. If anybody is aware why that is necessary, please let me know in the comments. And thank you for joining me to pick on Jessie Gender for a little bit, because I don't even hear the things that he says over and over and over again about why he's not a man anymore. I just kind of noticed the little slip-ups. It's are you a trans woman? Are you a non-binary person? Is it possible to be both? I'm not actually sure anymore. So join us at the top of the hour for the live stream and discussion where we can talk about all of that. And next week on Wednesday, where I'll have a new one for you. And I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye.